All right. I do believe we are recording. Now. Okay. So, today I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with Theurgia Goetia. Now, caveat, just for people who aren't in the know or aren't super magical or anything, what is Theurgia Goetia and how does it pertain to Ars Goetia, right? So we all know about Ars Goetia, right? Ars Goetia is this 72 demons to summon that are attributed with Solomon, right? So those are Ars Goetia, right? Now, the next book up is Theurgia Goetia. Now, Theurgia Goetia is same sort of thing, right? Only a different classification of spirits. So instead of it being 72 demon lords, they're aerial spirits, elemental in nature, and they all correspond with different points of the compass, right? I'm not here to get onto an academic diatribe about what actually is Theurgia Goetia, right? I trust you to look it up. Now, my experience working with this system. So being a astute occultist, I did as much research as I could on this thing, looked at it as much as I could, and then actually approached it. Now, the weird thing is about this, during the readings, it says that Solomon would summon it using a specific table. Now, let me grab that. Now, while working with this, I had a lot of art stuff on my hands. So, this, right? Let's see if I can. Yeah, so there. That's the table, right? This is the table to summon the Ars Goetia, or not the Ars Goetia, the Theurgia Goetia on, right? It says Solomon summed it on this weird like table, right? Now, am I the only one? Am I the only one who thinks of this and it thinks it looks like a circuit board? Just kind of, just a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay, so I actually made the little table, right? And I was starting to practice with these spirits. And now the way they do it, they say there's a call for these spirits. All the calls are one, and it's in the book, right? I didn't use this. I simply summoned these things using all the different god names through the Kabbalistic tree. So going from Kether all the way down to Malkuth. Okay? So that's how I did it. Now, I seem to have an effect from how I did these rituals, right? So I remember one time when I first did it, I summoned a spirit, and I don't know how well it occurred after I did it, right? I did ask for something for it to do and accomplish, because that's what they're supposed to be able to do. They're supposed to be like water fetchers, or, they're sort of servile spirits, right? It's not a bad thing, but again, they're sort of elemental. Now, I remember having a dream after the first time I ever tried this stuff, and it was like this weird, flamboyantly dressed person. Like, you would think they're gay based on how flamboyantly they were dressed, but they didn't look like they were gay. They just looked like really weird, colorful, like cartoon sort of dressed. They had like orange overalls and a green and black stripy shirt, and like he's like red haired, but he was like kind of spiky. Looked like he was going to a party. One of those kind of kids from the late early 2000s, right? Not the 20-teens, but the late early 2000s. I remember having this dream that I'm in my room and there's this weirdo that I don't even know. I'm like, "Who are you?" And he's just like, "Oh, I'm on call." Just checks his watch, and that was the dream. It was in my room. There's this stranger there, right? And I was like, "Whoa, that was weird," right? So I keep trying it, and I keep trying it, and I keep trying it, and I keep. Well, like, okay, so I did it once, twice, and then I'm like, okay, let's try this for real. Let's try this, like, buku, because I could get visions, like, of, like, what would be, like, these geometric shapes, sort of making the rough outline of a person in different, like, it looked like a garment or something worn. It didn't really look like a person, but it looked like the visage of a person. Like, if you saw it in art, you'd be like, yeah, that's supposed to depict a person, right? But maybe not. And that's what it looked like. really, really geometric and artistic looking, right? That's how these spirits look to my mind's eye. And then one day I got this bug up my butt. I'm like, hey, I need a job. I really want to do something. I want a job where I find treasure, because I found this great spirit in there that was perfect for finding treasure. And the spirit's name was Uscil, right? Uscil. Okay? And some people might know Uscil from that one movie where what's his face? Christopher Walken is Gabriel, and he's waging war on God, right? And then freaking Strider playing Lucifer has to stop him using Indian magic or something like that. I forget what the name of that movie is, but Uscil's in that movie. He's like the angel that dies in the midst of trying to like get the girl or something, right? Working for Gabriel, right? That's the only other reference to Uscil that I've ever seen. However, in Theurgia Goetia, Uscil is like one of the best spirits for finding treasure. And it even says it's best for finding treasure, and then all of its subordinate spirits are great for hiding treasure. And it's really cool, right? There's even a way like you just take the spirit seals and you put it around something you don't want anyone to find, and then you just put it away, and no one will ever find it, right? No one will ever find it. Okay, I digress. So I find this spirit. I'm like, hey, I'm going to utilize you, but I know that, like, everyone talks about, like, remember, this was early. This was spring 2014? Yes, 2014. Because I started alright, so basically I had a bunch of pennies, a bunch of change. I'm like, I need a job, right? I was like, without anything. I just had a bunch of change, and I figured, hey, I know. I'll just give this spirit my change. I want money. I'll give the spirit money. It'd be like this weird transactional thing. Okay. So here's what happens. I have a tiny little chest. Let me grab it. Alright. So I got this tiny little treasure chest that I bought, right? Ooh. Right? But right now I keep it filled with all my crystals and stuff. Oh, there's a spirit seal. But I keep it all like a bunch of stuff and treasure and shit, right? Okay, so what I do is I design this ritual to summon the spirit Uscil, right? But I fill my little chest, right, with a bunch of fucking change, a bunch of pennies and stuff. And I go up into the hills at my hometown, right? If you see my hometown, there's nothing but hills. That's what's cool about it. That and the beach. But I go up into the park near my house, up into the hills, into some sort of wilderness where I know I'm not going to be bugged. Because I'm trying to follow all the stupid rules, right? Because as you read, and you'll probably read a lot. Hopefully you do. I don't want to be the one source of knowledge, right? Because I am not a source of academic knowledge. I'm a source of experiential knowledge. I want to give you hearsay of what I've experienced so that you can be like, hey, well, I want to try that, or I want to experience something similar. Like, hey, at least it's possible, right? So, I'm doing this ritual up in the hills. I have my dagger, got the spirit seal. I'm doing the whole Goetia thing where I have the pentagram of Solomon with the spirit seal on a layman. I have the hexagram of Solomon basically over my groin. I have a spirit seal in a little pit that I designed. Drew a triangle around it. I summon the spirit using all the Hebrew god names. I'm like, I summon you by Iheye, by Yah, and so on, and so on, and so on, until Adonai Haaretz, right? So I summon the spirit, and eventually, and this is the one thing I want to explain to people, is like when we're actually doing magic and working with spirits or doing anything like that, when the mood shifts around you, you know you were doing it right. Okay, so when it gets weird, or the air feels thick, or it gets cold, and it just changes and changes and changes, and basically, if you know what you're going for, and the room changes sort of towards that, you know you're on spot, right? So I'm there, and suddenly the whole area just turns into this psychedelic kind of thing, right? I'm not saying that everything starts flipping and like doing these crazy coils and spinning off. No, it's sort of like everything farther away from me just seems like it's not there, or it doesn't matter, right? And it's just weird. And suddenly I'm like, okay, it must be working. The spirit must be here. So I take my chest full of pennies and stuff, and I'm like, here, this is the payment for the work. You know, I want a job where I'm finding treasure. I want a job where I find treasure. Okay. Literally, like 2 days later, because here's what I did. Before I get there, okay, back at the ritual spot, I like show the spirit the pennies. I'm like, here's payment for the fucking work, right? And then I basically bury the sigil, or the little paper with the spirit seal on it, in the ground with all the fucking pennies and all the change I gave it, right? Cover it up, turn around, don't look back, right? Ritual's over, right? Done. Literally 2 days later, I find myself applying for a job at the local Salvation Army. Okay? Now, this took forever to get to, and I had to keep coming in and checking back. But then, like, somehow I got myself, I found, like, a piece of sea glass that looked like an arrowhead, and I walked into, I basically had it, and I knew that the manager, she was into sea glass, because she complimented me on a little wire-wrapped Moldavite thing that I had at the time. And so she told me that she was into sea glass and she wire wraps it. So I had this piece of sea glass, and I walk down, check on my thing, and I just give it to her, right? Again, another transactional thing. Never hurts to grease the wheels. Never hurts to grease the wheels. Ever. Remember that. And I know everyone, like, a lot of people in the occult community, they want to be like, oh, I want to have my soul and dignity. And dude, just play the game, okay? Just play the game a little. I know you don't want to. I don't want to either, but we all have to play the game. Maybe not with mask wearing. I am religiously exempt. But anyways, so I do this stuff, and I end up getting the job. But then the manager tells me, because like it took tons of committee, because again, this is a charity. It's actually a church organization. Salvation Army is actually a church organization, and they do charity. They help out the alcoholics. Anyways, so I get down there for my first day of work after finally everything's gone through, and it's about May, and I think I did my ritual in March. I think I did my ritual in late March, and it took all the way to like May 8th for me to start working there, right? So boss comes to me and straight up tells me, hey, I got good news and I got bad news. And I'm like, fuck, no. Okay, give me the bad news, because at least then I have the good news, right? Because you gotta kind of try to make these things a little easier on you. Okay, so I'm like, give me the bad news. She says, okay, the bad news, somebody else got hired for the position you applied for. I applied for cashier because that was what was available. And somebody got the job, who actually is one of my best friends to this day. Really cool guy, but I'll bring that up later. And she says, okay, so the good news is you still have a job, you will still be working here, you still start today, and you're working in the back. And I'm like, working in the back of a thrift store is the goddamn best part, right? Because you know what your job is working in the back of the thrift store? Do you know what you do? Do you have any clue what you do in the back of a thrift store? That's right. You look for treasure. You just go treasure hunting in everybody else's old shit. Just the oldest stuff. The oldest, grossest, nastiest stuff, right? You can search for treasure. And that was my job. And doing this ritual, doing this spiritual evocation, I got myself a job finding treasure. Not only finding treasure, pricing treasure, and like letting other people see treasure. And I found a bunch of cool stuff, and I want to actually show you, because here's the thing: there's cool stuff that I found that are absolute treasures. kind of wanted to, because not only doing the Theurgia Goetia, but actually getting what you want. And this is what's important about it. Okay, so treasure number 1 is actually one of my prized possessions. It's a really cool thing, and I have actually done something to make this a talisman of Saturn. Right? Yeah, look at that, baby. Look at that. But if you see on the bottom, there are Roman numerals like a clock, and then on the top, there's Saturn himself. I found this while working at Salvation Army, and this is one of my prized possessions as a mage, because not only is it a really cool piece, you know, hourglasses are cool, right? But I actually have done rituals to imbue this as a Saturnian talisman, and I'll get to that on another video. But one of the many treasures, and I'm going to get to at least 3. I want to show at least 3, because I do have tangible results. Okay, number 2. Number 2 is my ring. Got a nice turquoise Indian head ring. Where's the autofocus? Anyways, this thing's pure silver and it's awesome, right? I saw it and it's cool. That thing I've yet to talismanize, but again, talismanic magic is really cool, and we'll get to that in another video. We're doing spiritual evocation. So, my last treasure from doing Theurgia Goetia, right? From finding treasures as a job, is this. Okay, so this book, it looks like a book, but it's not a book. It's actually an entire magical system. Comes from a system called Mazdazna, right, which was a Neo-Zoroastrian mystic school, right? So it was a mystery school, but it was a Neo-Zoroastrian focused mystery school, and a lot of the breath practices are amazing, right? Amazing. And I found exercises in there that I found only in 2 other places. One is Franz Barden's Initiation into Hermetics, which is a classic in the magical community. Another one is what I found in my martial arts school, which is the actual lineage of Shaolin, the actual martial lineage of Shaolin, which is actually in America right now, because it came here during the 70s. There's a whole story about it, but again, wrong video for that. But anyways, so if you're into spiritual evocation, if you're trying to get into that, and you really want to practice it without it being too dangerous or too weird or too scary, because I'm going to say Ars Goetia is very popular. However, it's the equivalency of vomit. It's something that's very effective when you don't interact with it, and it serves its function. But when you do interact with it, it's like dealing with vomit. You know, you don't want to deal with vomit. It's really, they're kind of like homeless spirits. Ars Goetia basically look like homeless spirits. Theurgia Goetia are a bunch of like elemental aerial spirits, so they're like the wind, right? But again, this was my experience working with it, and this was one of the best experiences working with that evocation system. Now, one thing I do attribute to my success is the fact that I gave this thing something. What it was, I don't really care, but it represented an aspect of what I was going for. I wanted a job, so I gave the spirits money. I want this, give me this, right? Give take, universe, give take. And that was my best experience working with Theurgia Goetia. And that was, and I just glad I was able to get it off my chest, finally tell people about it. And I got more stories, I got more crazy occult stories. Eventually I'll get them out there. I read tarot professionally and all sorts of stuff, but I don't know, like, share, subscribe, do something, help me out if you want, but I want you to. So I mean, you don't want to turn me down, do you? All right, Night, everybody. Bye-bye.